Welcome to the Showboys podcast. We're your hosts, Pixel Nick, that's me, and Chadwick the Third, that's he. We're here to break down episode 4 of House of the Dragon, season 2.
That just rolled so elegantly off your tongue.
I like to switch up the intro just ever so slightly each time.
I loved it.
I mean, it rolled off my tongue almost as easy as all these names are rolling off my tongue at this point in the podcast.
Yeah, right.
I'm slowly getting down, and my practice is when my wife asks me, she's like, especially like in this episode, right as like the battles like start, she's like, "Wait, what is happening?" And
Yeah,
I'm like, pause. I'm like, this, and that, there, and the other, and she's like, "Got it." I'm like, "Whoa, that I did that well, nailed it." So if I can recap it for her and get her on board, then I think I'm doing okay.
We're good. You're doing great. Yep.
Yeah. Obviously, summer takeover continues. House of the Dragon is the theme of the summer. Honestly, like Mike asked me earlier today, he's like, "How's it going, man?" I'm like, "Wow, everything's pretty great. Like, good 4th of July. Summer's been great. House of the Dragon is on, and like it just feels so right to end your weekend with that theme song playing.
Yeah.
Like there's just something so special about that, and I don't know, like they have that whole market cornered for like the like staple Sunday like sound,
yeah,
hour of enjoyment.
So I have been like going back and watching like some of season 1 House of the Dragon, some Game of Thrones. I didn't notice that, and I'm pretty sure this is right, I could be wrong, but I think the intro is like considerably shortened for House of the Dragon. Like it feels as long, but I don't think it's nearly as long as Game of Thrones was. I think they definitely shortened it, maybe even by like half.
I think that would check out. It maybe a couple reasons for that is they throw the actors and directors and all that right up at the beginning with, or is it just the embroidery?
I think it's just the embroidery, but maybe. That's a great
question. Because I know
question.
Game of Thrones had like the whole actual credits roll.
Right.
And the credits would be about a bit longer for Game of Thrones because there's probably double the cast.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So that could be why, if you've noticed, like it is longer or shorter.
Or somebody said like, here, HBO, or sorry, Max, you got to shorten your intros down. All their intros to every show, like even The Sopranos was super long.
Sopranos is very long.
Yeah. So every show,
like The Wire, all that. Yeah, they're all long. It's a staple though.
Yeah, it is.
But it's just like it's comfort sound, comfort food, comfort show.
Right.
Even though it's very discomforting at times. But man, this is the episode, like episode 4. We're halfway through this runtime was 57 minutes. Wasn't super excited about that, but I was pretty confident that this was a battle episode, and they do tend to run a little shorter because they just give us a little bit of discourse and exposition for the first half. And I was surprised because I paused it when my wife was like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, pause. And it was comfortably only like 60% through the runtime. I'm like, wow, like we have a nice chunk of time to fill here. And I was even really impressed with like the triple outtake post battle where we just visited the various things, and I'm like, black screen, Cole, black screen, like the conclusion of the battle. And I thought that was pretty well done. I enjoyed the continuous like feed of content, and that's just, I mean, I've said that every episode so far, like they've done a really good job of just packing so much in to each episode to really make that time feel filled. Like it goes quickly, but you don't feel like you lacked anything so far. There's just an abundance of all kinds of stuff going on. And we even in this episode, we got a fair bit of like, we still got exposition on Daemon over in Harrenhal. We got decent amount of King's Landing stuff. We got decent amount of Dragonstone. So it was pretty good. And like just bonus scenes, like the atypical, like we conquered this house, either join us or get beheaded.
Yeah.
That was a call back to like directly from multiple scenes from Game of Thrones. Very
Yeah.
classic. Whether it was you know, Daenerys doing it or the Lannisters doing it, and the Starks. Starks
Yeah.
did too. Though
Yeah.
Rob's a little bit more just, but
Right.
what'd you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I loved it. This is probably my favorite episode so far. Not just because we got some fighting finally, but because there's some big things that happen in this episode. Like we get our first major death of the war. We've had deaths here and there, but our first major death of the war era. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to love here. And I thought the freaking cinematography in this episode was like through the roof good, dude. That end scene, some of those dragon shots were haunting and beautiful at the same time. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, one thing, yeah, the CGI and also not CGI, those blended scenes where they're at, because we know that if you look at the behind the scenes stuff, and they keep advertising the 8-part documentary that goes with the making of, which is great. I need to start watching that actually, so we can start packing some of that into this. They actually ride like mechanical versions of these dragons, so they do a wonderful job blending that with the CGI obviously surrounding it. And yeah, I just thought very breathtaking, and how they're able to capture like what was going on in the sky for extended periods of time. Like it wasn't just like quick quips of the dragons, like they are literally entangled in the sky, and they show that both from afar, they show it both from out close. I would say it worked like to a 90% degree. There was some stuff that's just a little clunky sometimes logistically, but what are you going to do? Like I was impressed as it was what they pulled off. My only worry though is obviously they're being much more creative with dragons in this series because they have to be, but I hope it doesn't stale out and we get a lot of repeated things. We already have some repeated themes. Like Vagar kind of has like a very very like signature move going
Yeah,
on here.
yeah, he
And I
does.
don't I don't want that to be, I don't want to really see that necessarily a third time to the same effect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't want that to feel like a little bit of attrition on the impressiveness of these dragon encounters.
Yeah, I think that you're going to get a lot of that though, primarily because it just shows how overpowered Vagar is. I mean, you see it. I mean, you really see, we've seen him before how big he is, but you really see how big he is in this episode. And this freaking thing is massive compared to the other dragons that are in the scene. So I think you're going to get a lot of him. First off, the way he we'll get to it later, but the way he kills the dragon is badass. I thought it was so cool. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of that, but I don't think it's going to get stale, primarily because in Game of Thrones, we only had one dragon on dragon scene, really, maybe a couple towards the end when the Night King had his dragon. So we haven't seen a lot of dragon on dragon action. So this is really kind of maybe even the first, besides the end of last season, the first time we've seen it here, right?
Yeah, the biggest dragon on dragon episode in Game of Thrones is actually the Winterfell battle.
Yeah, the long night.
Yeah, and it's all dark. And while they pulled off some really good shots and cinematography of that, the dragons all the same. They all had the same moves, and also it was a lot of smoke and mirrors in that episode, but it was still hyper impressive.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I thought about, because when I see the dragon on dragon action, I obviously think of the episode that happened from Game of Thrones, the dark episode. Everybody complained that it was dark, and they actually like say in this episode like we should wait till dark, and they're like, no, we're going to during the day. I was like, is that like a little jab back? It gave like, we're going to show you all this shit in the daytime so you can see what's going on.
That's a good thought. I mean, I wouldn't put I think that's very popular these days, especially kind of speak to the audience at times and
right,
pick on their own complaints and or feedback in the past. So no, that's a good point. Like, yeah, that could have been a direct quip at that.
Quip, yeah.
Because we all know this is building towards some dragon action. So Colt, Gwent, what is what is Allison's brother's name?
Yeah. So it's actually funny because I did want to bring him up. Don't remember his name, but Gwent is actually the card game in The Witcher.
Yes.
That might be what you're getting. The brother. So I said last episode, like, where the hell did this dude come from? He was like talked about. I'm pretty sure that he's in the first episode of the series at the tourney, and he is the one that Damon beats the shit out of, like unseats from his horse to get back at Otto. And because I don't know how many sons Otto has. It says that was his eldest son in that episode. I don't know if this one is his eldest son or if this is another son, but I'm like, wow, totally missed that, even though, it was the first episode, so I didn't really know any of the characters or what was going on by then, but I saw that and I was like, son of a bitch, he's already been in the show before, just getting his ass walloped off that horse.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a cool callback.
Yeah.
So that's pretty fair. I was just trying to find his name. I know it starts with a G. Gawain.
Yeah.
Gawain Hightower. But yeah, let's roll. So shout out NPR for a fantastic review of things. They did the article title on theirs was actually really good. Because they always have like a cool quip about the episode, and this is a drag and drop interface. A little play on words. There were drag and drop.
Yeah.
Drag and drop. So we definitely have dragons dropping.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do a little bit of dragging, shuffling of the deck after this episode as well. So I thought that was a fun quip.
Yeah, it's good.
So no changes to the tapestry on the intro this week. I do every time I watch it, I take things a little bit differently. So we keep seeing the one like head getting cut off of the person sitting on the throne. I really just think that references the heir, which was Jaehaerys, who got his head cut off as a child.
There you go. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I just feel like that's appropriate because it's just a knife cutting the throat. Even though he's on the throne, he was technically the heir, so it's fair image to have. But it's interesting that, but it also makes sense that we got no changes this time, and explains why we didn't notice anything different from like episode 1 and like 2. Then 3 got some changes to it, and then this one is so far to stay the same. So definitely, it's not every episode, but kind of. I would say next episode, is change up.
I wonder if it's just dependent on, because really nothing major happened last episode, right? I wonder if it's just like major deaths, like we're going to see Rhaenys on there maybe next.
We'd have to.
Yeah. So I think that might just be it. They're just picking out the big deaths or the big events, if you will.
Yep. I agree. We'll definitely, I think, have some dragons in the tapestry, right? We got to honor them. So we actually pretty quickly get to Daemon's more dream state Daemon at Harrenhal. This time, even more trippy. Last time, we were very distinctly, I'd say, in dream state, not dream state. This, I don't think he's sure anymore. I'm not sure. He's not sure. No one's sure. He is fluidly going in and out of reality, as they made a point. So, I don't know if that's like where that's necessarily going. I hope it's not just to kind of just show us more and more how much he feels bad for the things that he has done. I hope there's another layer to it, especially with how it all plays out for him.
I'm curious about this too, because we know, and I think that maybe Viserys talked about this in season 1, that some of the Targaryens have like a dream ability where they can have like premonition dreams of the future. So I don't know if that's the road they're taking here. If he's going to be one of these dreamers, it's like a rarity, I think, between the Targaryens. I believe maybe it's super popular back when they were high powered, but I think it's a rarity. So I don't know if that's what they're going at, but I also at the same time know that Harrenhal is creepy and potentially haunted. We see in this episode that there's a witch there that he interacts with. So I think that's probably, I don't think they're going the dream. Daemon's going to be a Targaryen dreamer route. I think they're going. The witch is just fucking with her, and Harrenhal's fucking with him. But I don't know. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, so at the end of the episode, the showrunners there, they had mentioned that Alice Rivers is the character, the witch lady, and she's actually talked about extensively. They said in the book, which is very interesting for kind of what would otherwise be seen as just like a side character. So
Yeah,
I would say she probably has a larger role to play. So I think that's definitely why they're just pressing into that a little bit more. So I like it. I know that Alice Rivers is kind of like a favorite character so far because between her and then the resident the resident lord there, basically Laris's uncle, like they have great on screen like
yeah,
presence, especially with Damon. Damon's kind of like he's kind of I wouldn't say they they overshadow him, but like he does kind of shift to be like a little bit of a standard character, and like these other characters get the shine around him.
yeah. I I think Damon in this episode's hilarious. First off, his comment about to the little kid about suffocating his grandpa so he can get his succession going, it cracked me up. Yeah, I think I just don't know what route we're taking with Damon here. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's the dreaming thing, because the dreaming thing, everything that we've seen of that so far or heard of that, it's like premonitions for coming events. Daenerys even did it in Game of Thrones, where everybody thought we saw the throne room with snow falling in it, and it ended up being the ash at the end of the episode, or at the end of the season, or end of the show rather. So I don't think they're going that route, because he's not really dreaming anything that's gonna be in the future. He's dreaming about like cutting Rhaenyra's head off, which I guess maybe could be that one could be in the future, but he's also dreaming about like his dead wife in the room there with all of them. So I think it's the witch. I think the witch is a major character. I did see that in the end of the episode that they talked about her involvement in the book. But
he's definitely reliving his sins and his like regrets for sure. But maybe while battling his maybe past desire for the crown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he's like unknowingly trying to change away from that, but like this is what haunts him like deep down is the way he is on one hand versus the way he wants to be on the other. Could be one way to look at it, because obviously he definitely has always coveted the crown, has used Rhaenyra in the past to get closer to it, etc. So it could be like kind of like that internal struggle between that, and maybe like she's doing something funky, which I definitely think she is.
I definitely think she is also, yeah,
draw
for
that
sure.
out.
Yeah, I think she definitely is involved in some way. I appreciate so far that in all his dreams with Rhaenyra, they're using the young actress. I think that's awesome, because we talked about, I think she's a great actress. I think she did a great job. She just got kind of a bad hand dealt to her, where she's like, you're going to come on here and do this awesome performance, but it's only going to be like half a season of a show, and then you're going to never be on it again. But they're bringing her back. So I think they at least saw like she did a phenomenal job. We should bring her back for these dream sequences. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too, because I think that she plays a more particularly personal role for Damon, like, you know, as a niece in that state.
Yeah.
So I think it's just more of a powerful imagery than like current Rhaenyra, which I think he has a much different relationship to. And maybe that's how he sees it. Like he very much would have betrayed or killed old Rhaenyra versus this Rhaenyra that he maybe loves and would never do that to, because he does swear up and down that he does everything for her, even though she questions his loyalty, because he still does brash Damon like things that undermine her. So
yeah. Well, I think that I think he's seeing her as the young Rhaenyra, because he had far more control over her back then, because she's young. Yeah, I mean, she's presumed. I don't know if did we ever know her age? She's like 16 years old, maybe in the first part of the season. We'll say 15, 16 years old. And a lot of the episodes involving those two, he was heavily controlling her actions. You know, he gets her to sneak out of the castle and go down to almost wanted to say Old Town, not Old Town. What am I looking for here? Flea Bottom. Go down to
Yeah.
Flea Bottom to the brothel and stuff. So I think that he thought maybe he had a little bit more control, and that's why he's seeing this younger version. I think older Rhaenyra is far more difficult to control. I don't think she's really open to being controlled by Daemon in any capacity anymore. So maybe that's why, outside of just bringing the other actress back, and maybe there's another reason that it's the young one.
Yeah. Yeah, so we get Sir Simon here, Sir Simon Strong, informing Daemon of Cole's maneuvers in the Riverlands. Took the castles of House Rosby, House Stokeworth, and kind of growing his soldier position there. And he's like, they should be headed to Harrenhal next. Should be kind of thing. And Damon's definitely kind of like dragging his feet here on raising an army, in my opinion. Like this dream thing is really distracting to him because he really hasn't accomplished much in the time he's been here. But luckily, we do get a little bit of interaction with House Tully, and this is something I didn't pick up on. He hoped to meet Lord Grover Tully, but Grover is like the old one, like near death. So he sends his grandson and heir Oscar, right? And there's mentions in the book of also Tully's name Elmo and Kermit. So the Tullys have a bunch of Muppet names, or Sesame Street names. I thought it was like a joke, but like it's actually what their name is. So I thought that was really funny.
Well, that's on brand for George R.R. Martin because he loves hiding stuff like that. So when he did Elden Ring, he wrote some of the bosses for Elden Ring. He named some of them, so it's his initials. All the names are his initials. So that's on point that he likes to sneak those little Easter eggs in there. Yeah, this scene, I freaking love this scene, dude. Just because Daemon is just like holding nothing back. He's like, I need to raise an army, so why don't you just go back and take your feather pillow and suffocate your... And he's like, I love my grandpa or grandsire or whatever they call him in the show. It's just like, that's so funny, dude. He just like told this kid to go kill his grandpa so he can get his succession going.
Yeah, and Daemon just has this like irregard for like, it isn't even like an irregard for like the commoner in the world, like even the irregard for the lesser lords and rulers, like really anyone that is not him or Rhaenyra or literally a Targaryen. Like he could really care less of how they view the world. So that was easily, he was just like, didn't even comprehend it, and he just like walks away. And I like the interaction that Simon Strong has with the kid, where he kind of like pats him on the shoulder and kind of nods to him and like reassures him that you did a good job. Like even though that was this weird interaction, you got no like feedback at all. Good job, you made it through that conversation. Targaryens, what are you gonna do?
I loved it. But I also like that because I feel like we've seen a lot throughout the show, like children going to do like negotiations. We saw it at the end of season 1 with, and I forget his freaking name because he died already, and I didn't need to remember it. Luke. But Rhaenyra's younger son, Luke. We see him going to negotiate with the Baratheon, which is like a man's man, big burly man, and this little kid going to negotiate. Now we see it here. We also saw the little battle spin-off last week's episode between the two like teenagers. So it's cool because we got a little bit of that in Game of Thrones with like Little Bear with her like little, and I think everybody loved that. So I like seeing the kids going out and starting their job.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice touch, intentional or not. It to me, it speaks to like the maturity and or civilizedness of this Westeros, right? Where we have the heirs and the children of the house like taking on these duties like at an early age, and it's not insulting to like receive them as messengers, right? Obviously, there's time and place for the actual big dogs to be talking, but compared to Game of Thrones, where everything was in such neglect and everyone was just really clinging to what power there was, right? All the old heads really kind of just grasped all that, and the young ones were large in part pretty worthless. like even the Starks had to learn quickly on the job. They were probably the best Starks. They had the best dad in all the realm. Everyone else didn't really. The one was breastfed till he was like 9 or 12 or however old that kid was.
Yeah. Yeah.
House Aaron. And then like all of the Tullys at this point are a completely degraded state where they are all born of incest. And there's the one that I forget his name, but like he married all his daughters and had all, the kids, like not hundreds, but like many, many children with continuously
Right.
till he was old as dirt. So it just shows like a contrast between like a very deteriorated Game of Thrones versus this falling apart but very sophisticated medieval society.
Yeah, and I also think we see a significant amount more children in this show than we ever did in Game of Thrones. Like Dany didn't have any kids. Majority of the main characters didn't have children that would, besides the Lannisters, really. So I think that's it. I think I wonder if it's just the state, like everything's peacetime, so it's safer to go send your kid out and do negotiations because you know that it's safe, or if it's just where we're at with all the lords where they're just really old and can't get out of bed to go to the negotiations, so they're sending the grandchildren to go do it.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of all of that. But I really do think like it was just more common practice to be like, yeah, peacetime, like no problem sending the 10-year-old to go send a message down the road.
Right.
Might as well get some experience, right? So start them a little younger. Whereas the Game of Thrones, like, yeah, you send your 10-year-old out there, he probably gonna die. Like,
yeah, probably not a great not a great idea. Yeah. I wonder. I am curious about like because they haven't really showed too much of the just plain world going on outside. We see a little bit of it in season 1 when Daemon comes and kind of with the gold cloak scene where he goes and cleans up Flea Bottom. But I want to know is crime like up or down because of the dragons? Like, does that have any effect? Are people more scared that like they don't want to do these little petty crimes and get on the radar of the people that have the dragons? Or is it still just Game of Thrones mayhem out there and it's irrelevant to them?
I like to think crime is probably on the rise because war and chaos is just like on the rise. When Rhaenyra's dad was king, it was probably pretty, everything was pretty routine, and not out of control. And I really do think this is the stepping stone from like obviously 100 years of peace or 80 years of peace to the next 200 years of just collapse.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because even in that first episode with the gold cloaks, you can tell that it's like things are starting to unravel a little bit, especially down where he goes and cleans everything up. And he even says it in the small council meeting, like, people think King's Landing is like lawless. Like, I get that you think it's peacetime, but it's mayhem down there. So I went and cleaned it up. Just Daemon being Daemon. But so I think that things are slowly starting to unravel. But I would like to see more of we got the scene with like the blacksmith or whatever in this. I would like to see like just little snippets here or there, 2-minute scene of what's going on the downside, not all the highborn lads, what's going on in their camp.
Yeah. And I think, especially with this next scene with Corlys and Rhaenys down at the docks, I think this is because this episode was a battle episode. The next episode will be kind of more like episode 3 where we get the blacksmith. And I'm hoping that this next episode actually goes a little further with the whole Alan thing here.
Yeah,
with Corlys.
I want to know what's going on with this because Rhaenys like recognizes him or recognizes the family. Maybe I don't know. There's some weird interaction that they have.
Yeah, so they're bastard Valyrians. Not spoken yet in the show, but she was referencing how I think that he looks a lot like Corlys. Like Corlys, I think, is their father. And bastard children before her or during her, but like that's why she's like very convenient. Like, I know who he is. So I feel like there's a strong play there why that interaction had to happen, but plus why what happens to her at the end of the episode happens, opens it up for Corliss to now explore this a little more
Yeah.
forwardly, because I think he hasn't been, because he's trying to like respect her and like not just raise up all of his bastard children from the docks.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because she does comment like, your mother must have been so beautiful or something like that. And I was like, that's such a weird comment. Like, why did she say that? So that makes so much more sense. So I was so curious, because they were showing these characters not frequently. We got a couple scenes with the brothers, right? We got one with him and Corliss, and then we got the one watching the dragon that doesn't have a rider.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. I think I might know what path we're going here now.
I mean, that's like the fourth scene with Alan.
Yeah,
because there's like him and Corliss, him and his brother on the beach, and now him with both Rhaenys and Corliss. So definitely getting some screen time, and I think we should see what's happening in the next episode with that a little bit more, which I think will bring us, open the door for explore that non-main character thing, also explore maybe more of this bubbling stuff in King's Landing. I think the blacksmith claiming to be a Targaryen is true, but like not a thing that really pans out to do anything, but I'm not sure on that. As a callback to last episode when he's like, I'm a Targaryen, heir to the throne.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Aegon rolls up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if that was just a one-off scene as a funny bar scene, or if there's more to that. But I'm definitely more curious on the brothers. I think I know. I think I know where we're probably heading now that everything is panned out in this episode. And they're in need of another dragon and another rider to ride said dragon. So I think that's probably where we're heading with that. But that makes so much more sense, because I was so confused. I was like, why? That was such a weird interaction with her. But that makes sense. Yeah.
Imagine your wife showing up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wait a second.
Yeah. So from that scene, well, I was gonna say I need a scene of Alan like running through the streets like in a panic, so I can get some Assassin's Creed like comments and like lines of dialogue.
Right.
So our next scene here, we have Alicent in her chambers, and Maester Orwell brings her a drink that they're both pretending is for a friend, and this is the tea that we've seen before. It is moon tea, and it basically is like a morning after pill, or whatever form of just cancel that pregnancy. So surprise, surprise, she takes it because she doesn't necessarily want to have Cole's children. I don't blame her either. So good move, girl. Good move.
Yeah. This is.
I like how this was pretty subtle. It was pretty subtle. How they played that all out. So there wasn't like overly in your face, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Because they don't hint at it, and she even, I think, comments like, "I'll make sure it gets to whoever it's going secretly." I do want to point out that I didn't pick up on this before. That Maester was actually the Maester in episode 1, like that was training, and he was like working on Viserys. I didn't pick up on that. I think that's cool. Now he's actually a Maester. But yeah, it was subtle until Clubfoot talks about it later, and then I was like, "Oh, that's what's going on here." Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
It was just enough.
I thought she had a tummy ache. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But also interesting, more like little introspections on Alicent's point of view and like where her head is at, because she asked the Maester, like, "Do you think the whole Aegon Rhaenyra thing is right?" He's like, smartly, no comment. I wouldn't know. Never talked to me about it. I was like, nice dude.
Well
like,
played.
Slid out of that one. I'm pretty sure he knows. Like he has to know.
He
He's
has
just
to,
like
because Viserys
job
was a
security.
talker. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
was a talker too. He loved talking. So with 100% certainty, he said something about this to the Maester at some point over this 10, 15-year time that he's been in the castle. But I did like the way he slithered right on out of that so quickly.
Yeah, he's like, I like to keep my job, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, but he could cite like everyone else, like Rhaenyra cites like, he did back her up, like every day of every year on that, so the data tells me, Aegon shouldn't be, but whatever,
Yeah.
15, 20, however many years of it being this, and then magically one night, one deathly moment, he's like, hey, oh, got it. That's what we're running with.
Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting on all these scenes, and we get another one too, where, when Larys shows up and he's kind of like, doing some reading here. Like, are you questioning what's happening? Yeah, because we all know what's up, but like, where's your head at, Alicent? She's like, no, double it down, triple it down. Like, I heard what I heard.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because even when she says it, you can almost tell that she doesn't believe it anymore. And I think you see like she is just riddled with guilt in 10 different directions. She's riddled about the kid getting killed and Cole being in her bed. She's probably riddled now that she's maybe pregnant with Cole's baby, which is like the worst case scenario for that situation to develop into a pregnancy. And now I think she's really feeling the guilt of potentially starting a massive war between a family, maybe on a lie or a misinterpretation or mishearing what Viserys said. So I think she's feeling it, even though she's saying that she's on the one side, you can almost read it on her face that she's like really second guessing everything. And I think the books show that too. I think she's looking for the Song of Ice and Fire in those books to see if that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, and we get 3 scenes this episode that nearly like every time, like I'm like, it looks like on her face she's just gonna like give in and be like, this is a farce, but she doesn't. Like her face says one thing, she says the next thing. And this is a later scene, but we can cover it now. But like Sir Larys like rolls in there after a council meeting, and he observes the Moon Tea. Smart man he is, dumb she is for just kind of leaving that out, and just letting her door be open. So I thought that was kind of like on the nose, where now Larys just kind of knows about that, but he also seems to know about her and Cole. So he kind of like probes her a little bit for, what's up with you and Cole, and like how you feeling about Aegon. So nothing really came of all that, but it was an interesting like temperature read between those two. He didn't ask about her feet. Luckily, I was really.
I thought for sure. Yeah, I thought for sure there was going to be some sort of comment, and I don't even know if that is what he was hinting at when he's like, "You're not being yourself. Like you're not letting me do my thing here." I think that maybe now that he is Master of Whisperers, he's maybe moved on to another set of feet. Maybe not the best idea to be focusing on the queen's or the king's mother's feet all the time. Maybe he's moved on, but yeah, I like this scene a lot. I think he's reading her like a book. Like clearly he's spouting it out, everything that's going on. He's a smart guy. We know that going in. So he sees the little cup from the maester on the table, instantly picks up on that.
She has stones that are heated, like holding it on her abdomen. Like he's
yeah. So, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed every Alicent scene this episode, especially the one with the king. I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah, she definitely great acting. Like
so
like the fact that she can play both. Like my face says this, but I am going to now say this is just
it's like
really
that's another level of acting there for sure. And I even said last episode she has the best like facial features for when she's annoyed. Like you can instantly tell when she is annoyed just by the way her face is moving. So I think she's really good at that and is playing into the character really well. So
yeah, for sure. just impending dread of being a
Yeah.
mother, right?
Yeah.
Just everything is just a level of sad, no
Yeah.
matter what. We do get some Dragonstone action. So Rhaenyra's advisor is being disgruntled as always about her absence. They're kind of like trying to figure out what Kristen Cole's up to with his army. It's growing and it's moving in an odd direction. Like they would assume it's Harrenhal, but they just keep sacking all these small castles and slowly growing a slightly formidable force. Granted, note any size standing army right now on the main continent is impressive because the blacks have no army.
Nothing. Yeah.
So any army right now that can take a castle is of concern.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I like two things out of the scene. I like that they're commenting on where Rhaenyra is. Like normally that in Game of Thrones would have been she went to King's Landing, she came back the next episode. Nobody talks about it, says like where she was for presumably a week's trip to King's Landing or even longer. So I appreciate that they're talking about it, and she is missing. She's not right back at the beginning of this episode, and they have no idea where she went. But yeah, there's like, we talked in episode, I don't remember, episode 1 maybe, where there's like no infighting on the black side. That's splintering a little bit, I think, because there's a lot of infighting in this small council. Like they can't get on the same page. Like one side wants to do this, one side wants to do the other thing. I think that is maybe remedied by Rhaenyra's plan this episode. I think she satisfied everybody's complaints, and I think she had the right to do exactly what she said she was going to do and see if she could sue for peace in any capacity before she pops this thing off and ends 80 years of peace.
Yeah, and I think her explanation there with like the facts is like a really good one. Like it's been weeks. It's only been weeks since her like she even says this. Her father died, right, and all of this like tragedy has happened. So for 80 years of peace to be inherited, like it's probably okay for us to like just pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Where like the main guy here, Sir Alfred Broom, is just like a complete like arsehole about the whole situation.
Yeah.
He's just like, let's go. Where is she? What's going on? And he's constantly, him and the other guy, the two like disgruntled white old men, are just like constantly, she's not here. Let's just fuck everything up. Like, guys, like calm down. You guys look bad.
Those two. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, luckily, Corlys show like they're even like ignoring Rhaenys, and a lot of this is kind of on the nose, like how they set this all up. But luckily, Corlys walks in, and they all instantly just like shut the hell up. And he just like shuts them down. He's like, "This is pathetic. Like, can we not get anything done while she's not around? Like, let's figure something out here." So I like how it played out, but they keep hinting at like this constant bickering.
It's really those two. Yeah, it's those two. So I think if anything treacherous happens on that side, it's going to be tied back to those two, and maybe feeling like they're unheard in the council. But that might have, like I said, that might have all been remedied by her coming back and saying what she said and the way the episode panned out. Like it's time. Like we pumped the brakes, it didn't work, so we're plowing through the wall now. We're going to press on the gas.
Yeah, and she makes like she wanted to exhaust all and any doubt that this was the correct move. Like she admittedly and rightfully, like even though she knew she was right, like it's okay to question, like maybe I am wrong. Let me just make sure, because there's a claim that I'm not. Maybe I'm not. Who knows? Like Alicent's a fairly stand-up person, as far as she knows, but she doesn't know how terrible she really is.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean that's all fair to do.
Yeah, I agree. It had to be done. It had to be done. Maybe, like we said last episode, the planning probably wasn't the best way to do it, but she got away with it. So I guess we can't complain about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she owed it to her family, Alicent's family, and the entirety of the realm to go and see if they could talk this over before they start this massive war that hasn't been seen by this generation at all. None of these people that are going to be fighting in this have ever fought in a war, which is important to remember. And we see that kind of bubbling tensions in episode 1 with the tournament, where they're just massacring each other because they're so bent up. And it's like taking it's like the peacetime samurai versus the wartime samurai. Like the peacetime samurai were way more fucked up because they didn't have a war to fight. It was peacetime. And that's what those guys are built for. They're built for warfare. So when you take them out of that, bad shit happens.
Yeah. But and really only the older ones, had seen any conflict, like Rhaenys, Daemon, Corlys. They all have seen fighting outside of the kingdoms, whether it be those islands or elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, small skirmishes here and there. Yeah.
But they have experience, whereas like a vast majority of everyone else does not.
No.
And we do get Cole with his army sacking Duskendale. And that's where he beheads Lord Gunthor Darklyn. And he kind of warns Cole that the same fate will come to you.
I think that old man was all of us. Yep. Spits on Cole and then tells him you don't deserve that white cloak. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, no, he does. The perfect line. You're not worthy of that white cloak or however he says it. But yeah. I like that. That's what I want to do. I want to spit on him and say, dude, you suck. So
yeah. And this is where he unveils that, he's not going northeast. He's going northeast, and Gale, man, what is his thing? Anyway, the Hightower lad. He's like, Harrenhal, I know you're not like from the Riverlands, my lord, but Harrenhal is not that way. It's this way. And he's like, cool story, bro. We're doing this thing. So, at this point, I'm just like, okay, like he's just like taking castles along the way. Easy thing. Now we jump to the small council meeting at King's Landing, and this was a very interesting council meeting. Very interesting. Aegon is worried and kind of fired up. This opens up with a hot-headed Aegon. He's ticked off that Daemon has taken Harrenhal, and like Larys, like, what the hell? It's your castle. Why'd you lose that? You look like an idiot. And then he's like, Cole should be going there right now. But also Lord Larys kind of like affirms him that Harrenhal's, that place pretty much sucks, and like he's not giving too much with it anyway.
I love the way he says it. Yeah, that castle's more crippled than I am.
Yeah. And then we got to get to like the point of it where Aemon kind of speaks up, and he has this like quick little like jot over to the map, and he's like, "We're not going to Harrenhal. We're going right up here to Rook's Rest." And Aegon's like, "What the hell? Like that's the dumbest thing." Blah blah blah. And then Aegon sits down and he starts talking to him in High Valyrian, which this is always a fun character detail about Targaryens. Is we saw this a lot in season 1 when Daemon and Rhaenyra would speak High Valyrian as almost like a way that only they would understand themselves. It was their own like twin language kind of, and they always talked about really sweet stuff in these moments because they were on a different level than everyone.
Yeah.
In this scene, Aemon kind of flexes it because he knows Aegon sucks at speaking it.
Yep.
And Aegon is just continuously like, while he has never seen quote unquote battle, he is young, but he has the best dragon. He is a good swordsman. He actually paid attention in class, apparently, and learned his High Valyrian very well. And he knows a thing about at least some sort of strategy and warfare. So he is fairly gifted in this regard, whereas Aegon is kind of like this snotty little person to not inherit anything, and he just sucks.
No, I think it's a good parallel, because when we see Aemond and Aegon when they're younger, Aegon's the more powerful one, if you will. Aemond's kind of weak and gets bullied and pushed around. But normally, and I'll use this, I'll use baseball, Little League Baseball as an example. So the kids that are really good at 10 years old, none of those kids are going to play high school baseball because they've plateaued and they don't think they need to get any better. And the kids that aren't very good, they're going to work their ass off and keep getting better and better and better. And they're going to be the ones that are playing in baseball or in high school. So it's the same thing here, where Aegon thought he had it all figured out. It's roped in. He's the heir to the throne. He's going to be the guy. He's out whoring around and drinking and all this stuff. And Aemond has a far more focused approach. And now we see the fruits of that focus now, where he just manhandles him in Valyrian, which is great. And then Aegon tries to say something back to him. And it's like not, I can't remember what he said. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It's like something like, now we try to make war.
Like,
yeah. It was busted. All busted.
So bad. But I do think that these are kind of boiled over tensions, maybe from the brothel scene last episode. I think Aemond is still visibly pissed off that happened. And I think we see that more later on in the episode as well. But yeah, Aemond's great here. The only thing that keeps being said is that, and he says it here, that this war isn't going to be won with dragons. It's going to be won with dragons riding behind armies of men or something along those lines. But we see in the end of this episode, and really any episode that we've ever seen dragons and humans interact, the humans are really worthless. Like there's no point for them to even be there. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Like, would the right strategy not be like a bombing run first? Like, let's go fuck shit up with the dragon. Then we'll send the armies in. That way, in case there is another dragon that interacts, it's just going to be dragon on dragon, and we're not going to be losing soldiers, which we're trying to gain currently. We're not trying to lose anybody right now. Right now, we're trying to grow our numbers. Like, that seemed unnecessary for there to be an army there during this scene.
Yeah, I mean, in this particular scenario they were setting up, it was a bait.
Like, I get
So like in that situation, and ultimately you do need armies to take the castles. Obviously once the dragon,
right. That's over, clear, then you send the armies in.
Yeah, but like I think the other thing is like outside of like, and I think that's where like they're trying to balance the whole idea of like how to use dragons. Like they are nukes. They are nukes, and yes, you could send dragons out and about and just start melting castles, but like that doesn't really gain you much. You lose castles, you lose a lot of stuff with that. So I think that's like the restraint of it is that like you're not really going to draw a dragon to anywhere on the map without an army being present, because ultimately the dragon is the trump card over the army, and then another dragon is the trump card over the dragon. So there isn't really much point, I think, from like a dragon rider perspective. It's like, why would we just randomly duke out in the skies over the bay, for example? Like nothing's to be gained from that other than someone dying. So the armies kind of, in my mind, force the hand of the dragon card, and without that, you're just kind of needlessly wasting dragon power.
That, and I'm also curious, and I think Cole gets maybe a little bit of this towards the end of the episode. I wonder if it's like, because it's been 80 years of peacetime, they really don't. I don't want to say they don't know how the dragons work, but they don't know how the dragons interact with armies and how they change the battlefield, because it really hasn't been done for their generation, right? And even longer than that. So I'm curious if they're like trying to figure it out. Like, okay, like I think Cole gets a little bit of that where he's like, shit, like I didn't realize dragons could decimate things this easily and this effectively.
I mean, I definitely think they have some like there's some naiveness to it, to where you're thinking like, yeah, I get to march my badass army at a castle. Dragon flies and backs us up, burns the other dragon. We take the castle. Everything's peachy. Yeah. But I think then there's a harsh reality to be had where like your dragon isn't going to necessarily show up at the same time as the other dragon.
Right.
And no one's going to stop. And that dragon, unless it instantly just like snipes the other one, isn't going to guarantee it's not going to do a bomb run on like your whole front line. So yeah, I think there's a lot of naiveness to their strategy and thinking that, oh yeah, move army, move dragon. Like it's not risk. It isn't like a purely numbers thing on the board. Like a lot of stuff happens.
Yeah,
It
I
changes
think
the
that.
complete makeup of it.
Yeah, I think he got maybe checked on his expectations of maybe how strong of a warrior he is when there's dragons flying around in the air, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk a little bit more
yeah,
about that.
we'll get to it.
We do get more Damon. We get more to Damon's dreams. We kind of talked about this earlier. The whole Alice Rivers interaction. Eventually, we get another. He wakes up in his bed, door shaking, sees footsteps, chases him with a sword. He ends up in her kind of apothecary, and she's doing her job, and she's like, I thought she's funny. Like she's like
Yeah.
kind of late to be like just roaming about the castle, just slaying
Yeah.
slaying its inhabitants.
Yeah.
So they have a great interaction here, and I really love how she's able to like counter all of his like smart assness and like I think I'm higher than you, and then even like gets right to him under his skin, almost like she has him under a spell because he is like all bewildered, like this woman is just like on him
Yeah.
on like multiple levels, and then to the point where he just freely just kind of he questions, he's like, I'm not gonna drink that, in his mind, but then he just drinks it. So it
Yeah.
was a completely bizarre, very awesome interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
From her.
yeah, this whole scene's really cool. I also really liked so when he comes out of the bedroom, he sees somebody and he starts following them, and then it turns around and it's Damon with Aegon's eye patch on, which is cool because I think that's showing maybe like they're fairly similar people. You know what I mean? We've talked about that in episodes, especially last season, where they're very similar. Damon is the Black's version of Aemon and vice versa. So.
Yeah, and I've read some stuff where it's like he might have some guilt for creating Aemon because he feels maybe a little bit responsible for creating that monster, if you will. But also that could be one of the few things he sees that is a premonition of their eventual interaction that has to happen. I don't see how it can't.
I think it has to, absolutely has to happen. But yeah, I appreciate that. The interaction with the witch is phenomenal. She's great. I hope we see way more of her. I would like a little bit more non-dream sequences out of Damon here, because it just doesn't seem like he's really off the board currently. Like he's not really getting, like you said earlier, he's not getting much accomplished there because he's tripping balls the whole time. So I would like maybe, I don't know, step outside, get some fresh air.
Yeah.
Figure out what the hell you're doing here, because we kind of need you on the other side. We need you back, or we need you to figure out what you're doing here.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's playing this. He's trying to play the whole like I guess political maneuvers here, just trying to like allocate an army by talking to the local lords at Harrenhal. And he does this the next morning, but he wakes up from his like hallucination in like the meeting chamber with William Blackwood, and he is like, he's obviously been in that situation for minutes, and he's just like, whoa. He's like, who are you? He's like, what's happening? Really bizarre interaction, but very cool. As he is continuously spacing out on different things and sees his dead wife.
Yeah, sees his dead wife. Yeah, I think it's we see it earlier in the dream too, where in his dream sequence he hears there's been a raven sent, and then he wakes up and it's the old man saying like, hey, there's been a raven sent. So we're seeing that I don't think, outside of maybe that first one in last week's episode, I don't think he's sleeping during these. I think this is like some sort of trance that he's in. Clearly during the meeting he's there, but he's not there.
He woke up at the tree, or he came from the hallucination by the tree out in the courtyard. So he's definitely up. Day walking, night walking, something. But even the NPR article, they mentioned that like it does kind of hurt that he's completely removed from the entire ensemble, right? Granted, he's gonna eventually rejoin because Harrenhal is going to be a head point for all of this, but he's really far and removed from everything. And I do like how Alice Rivers even goes like, when her first line that really gets to him is like, you're here because you're fighting with your wife or something. So
Yep.
I thought that was all cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I just need, hopefully next episode we get some like, what the hell are you doing here, Damon? Like, if you can't stop dreaming, brother, you need to get out of there, because like shit's popping off around the continent. So
yeah, Caraxus
needs
some action.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see him fight. So now that they figured the CGI out on him, should be good.
Yeah. The next thing we got Aegon and Alicent. So Aegon left the meeting, the small council meeting, just defeated. Like we always get these back-to-back scenes where it's like Aegon is like trying to be king, trying to be assertive, trying to be important and matter, and then the next scene, like he's just completely defeated because he feels alone. He doesn't feel useful, and this scene doesn't go the best for him.
Doesn't help him. Doesn't help his case. Yeah.
Alicent, this is also a really cool angle for Alicent, because she just comes back from like literally, still dealing with probably the trauma of her and Cole in that whole situation, aborting her child of Cole, which is also very troublesome. And like also, probably like the day before, or that day, probably the day before, meeting with Rhaenyra, almost thinking she's about to get killed in the Sept. Going through all these things that are just very layered and complex, dealing with Larys's creepy ass, and then we have like basically a blubbering child king who's just like, I don't feel important, I'm sad. And she's like, good Lord, child, like the things that were done to place you here, that was all built on a lie that I'm trying to hold together. Like you could just see it. And it's so well done, whether it's the dialogue, her acting, and it's just like it's so believable how everything she's going through.
Yeah, it's so good, dude. And she just lays into him too, in like the most polite way of doing so.
But she peels it back a little bit. Like normally she is super polite, but then she just kind of like gives it to him.
So the first thing she points out is I think she's actually, she does towards the end of that in the middle of the end of that conversation. The thing that I was curious about, because I don't think she was planning on meeting with him. She was in that room trying to find a book, and he had all his father's books removed, and she kind of gives him shit for that, like all that wisdom that you just took out of here. And he's like, I had him removed, not destroyed. Yeah. So I think she's still on her hunt for that Song of Ice and Fire, trying to find it. But then when she starts laying into him, and he says like, watch your mouth, and she's like, or what? Like, you're going to hang me like you did the Rat Keepers? You're going to banish me like you did your hand? That acting there from her is, dude, it's so good, dude. I loved hearing it. I felt terrible. I don't want to say I felt terrible for Aegon, but he's already in the slumps, and he's coming to his mother for hopefully some love and support, and he does not get the remotest bit of it. She literally says, like, all we want you to do is what we expect of you, and that's nothing. That's what she says. Like, you're not expected to do anything.
What do you want me to do, mother? Nothing. Just sit there. And she's like, you should be grateful for all of everyone on that council's like knowledge and learn from it. And she's also like it's just a really good kind of aside that like everyone's always going through their own thing. So like when people do lash out, like there's always something, like it's not you, it's like they're going through their own things. And then you're just like a trigger. And in that moment, like she's dealing with all this stuff. She's trying to find this freaking story of this Song of Ice and Fire. Like, and she's like, all right, in his quarters, he has to have the book somewhere. Yeah. Granted, side note, I'm pretty sure the little dragon thing she broke when Larys stormed in on her was one of the ones she made for him. Yes. Which was a sentimental piece for her, and then she was a little flustered that she broke it. I thought that was a cool detail. But she's trying to find this, and she's like looking. She's like, where are all the freaking books? And so this idiot, her son, Aegon, who she put on the throne through her lie, just yet again doubles down on he's just an idiot and like just gets rid of all the freaking books.
Yeah.
Like she's just
Yeah.
annoyed to no end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get it. It all makes sense, and it's a nice little bit of acting, scene, writing, all that of just like how those interactions do play out that way. Like she wasn't a dick for no reason, but
Right.
like she definitely was a dick.
She
That
definitely
was
was a
very
dick. Yeah.
like she's gonna feel bad next episode too for that last interaction with him
Yep.
or that most recent interaction she had with him.
Yeah, but you're right. She is going through her own shit right now. The sad thing about all this book hunting is that I'm pretty sure that we know there is no book that says this story in it. This is a story that's passed down from king to king to king. It's not written in a book anywhere. So she's never going to find this story, which is probably going to play into the story. She's going to think that Rhaenyra was lying or whatever. But yeah, she's going through her own shit, and unfortunately, her son just got the brunt of it at the worst possible time for the poor kid, who just got the same thing from his his younger brother. So poor Aegon.
Poor Aegon. And this is where we get into the meat potatoes of a lot of everything from this episode, which was a great build up to this final act of this episode. And we have Cole's army preparing to attack Rook's Rest. This is where Hightower is like, so like, we're just gonna lay low, attack at night. Cole's like, nah, F that. We're gonna attack during the day. Because that's what they least expect.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see, withholding information there, that him and Damon, or Aemond have plotted this plan that we haven't quite seen yet. This is where I was like, why did Allison say, do you know where Aemond is in the last episode?
Yeah, so I wanted to bring that up because I actually questioned that way earlier when we seen him in the small council meeting. I'm like,
exactly.
There he is. He's right there.
Yeah.
There he is. But yeah, I don't know if she was hinting at this. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Was it bad editing? Like,
maybe.
I can't believe they would have messed the editing up like that.
You wouldn't think so, but
it also makes you wonder. Like, so, Cole and Aemond obviously have continued plotting with each other, right, against Otto's. Like Otto said exactly what Aegon said. Like, behind my back, you're plotting and talking about things. So I did like to see Aegon take that little bit of advice from Otto and be like, what the hell, bros? Like, you guys just making all these plans without me. But it makes me wonder, like, how much is Alicent privy to? I'm still not sure because they don't really let on to like how much she is in the know. She really is kind of dealing with her own stuff.
right.
Granted, we haven't seen her daughter, which I think is weird. The queen, technically, I don't know where she's at. But is she completely in the loop on Cole and Aemond's plan? Is it just them? Like, who knows about this? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I can't imagine that Alicent does, but she does maybe hint at it last episode. But she's got a lot of shit going on. It doesn't seem like she's too focused on the war effort. She's still spun up on the should this even be a war aspect of the war effort. You know what I mean? Where
she has such a duality there because she's like both all for it, but also like still questioning it. I don't know.
Yeah. And it just feels like we're past that point. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. And she says that in the like it's too late. Like we're too far into this.
It's
but
just
she
so weird
even
that we see Aegon.
Yeah.
Like earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
And it really kind of mooted that comment to me. And I was like, dang.
Yeah, that was the worst part. If he had just shown up at the end of the episode or the middle of the episode at Rook's Rest, that would have made sense. Yeah, that would have made sense. But I can't be too mad because his interaction in the small council is probably one of his best scenes of the series so far. So,
yep, yeah. So Cole's preparing to attack. Something up there because he's just gung-ho to attack this tiny little castle that no one should care about. With the only reason that Aemond gave why they would take it is it would cut off Dragonstone from the mainland because one of her advisors, this is his house, etc., etc. So there is a slight mild reason to do it, but they don't have a standing army. So it's like what's going on here, but it's enough to for when Rhaenyra returns is like, where are we saying the dragon? I'm here. I'm ready to go, guys. And like you said earlier, kind of buys back the buy-in on that front.
Yeah.
I thought Jaehaerys was
Very,
very
yeah, very angry about
irritated with his mother.
Yeah, even though he was like defending
Fuck you at,
her.
bitch.
Yeah, he was defending her at the beginning of the episode that she was. So yeah, I thought that was a weird flip too, and it was like total 180 immediately.
Yeah, I thought that was very out of place and didn't feel right. I was like,
And
why is he all of a sudden just on her case?
yeah, and also I'm not a big fan of like calling people out in front of an entire group of people. So like, not the right place to do it either. Like if you want to discuss that, don't do it in the small council meeting. We already have splinters popping up left and right in the small council. We don't need to drive more into that. Like talk about that later on.
Yeah, I don't know if like the direction in the like script notes, right, as they do in the script, like what the thinking is there. Like, was he's finally like bought into like the other dudes like bitching the whole time, and he's just joining the bitch fest, which is totally out of character, in my opinion. So yeah, I didn't agree with that at all. And even the way we get to his scene a little later with her, like it still doesn't make sense. Like what that was even, it just was unnecessary.
Yes.
He should be taking a page from Rhaenys, not whatever Doom Dork. I don't know what his name is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was weird. And also she is just so kind of a ruler too. Like she really gives them all a lot of brevity when it comes to back talking and questioning. She's like, all right, are we all chill now? Like we're done. I'm back. Can we like move on?
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe in part now that she's on board with what they're talking about.
Sure.
You know, she went, she figured out her situation that she needed to figure out. She comes back. She says, I needed to figure that out. See if there was any way that there was a chance we could have peace. I now know that's not a possibility. So dragons it is.
Yeah.
Dragons. So I think that's
she was so dragons it is. She's like, I'm going. And then her son's like, right, no, I'm going. She's like, no, I'm going. And then Rhaenys, all knowing that she is, she's like, I'll go actually. Seen some battles, know a thing or two. You're the queen. You probably shouldn't. So I'll go.
But I will say that just the fact that she said it, even though she didn't end up going, just the fact that she was like, I'm going. I love that because a lot of the shitty rulers that we've seen in Game of Thrones were not like that. And that's why I always liked Stannis, because he was on the ship rolling into Blackwater to take his throne. He wasn't sending people out to die for him to clear the city for him so he could just walk up there. He was on the front line. So I love that in a leader. And I love that Rhaenyra was like, I'll go. But obviously no one's going to let her go. Right. Which turned out probably to be the right move.
Definitely. And simultaneously we get basically after this point we get some nice montage, I guess, a little super cut of Rhaenys getting ready for battle on her dragon in their Dragonstone cave, and then we have Aegon suiting up in his armor and then going to the dragon pit and getting on his dragon. So we have Meleys and Sunfire, two great dragons. I think Meleys is a very traditional dragon. Sunfire has a little bit of a different build, definitely gold. And then Meleys is like very strong red, and that's the title of the episode. It's like the red dragon or the golden dragon and the red one, something like that. So
that's funny because didn't I say the episode name last week was A Dance of Dragons? I did. I know I did. So the episode that was posted was, or the title that was posted was originally A Dance of Dragons. And now you are right. It's the red dragon.
The red dragon and the gold.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's interesting that it swapped. But this scene is cool for two things. There's like a little tense build up there for Aegon, where the score is just freaking on point. Love the score, the tense score that's going on through this montage.
When he's drinking.
But when he's drinking and then he slides the thing off, it shatters, and then he gets up and he's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go fight. And that in that moment feels very Aegon, right? Like he's pissed off. His council doesn't listen to him. His mom just berated him, and he's like, "I'm gonna go show him what I'm capable of."
Who's king?
But that
I'm
tense,
king.
yeah, exactly. And I love this because you want to look at Aegon and think that he's like Joffrey, right? But he is not anything like Joffrey. Joffrey was not for everything that he was not like weak-minded and needed love, and that's what Aegon is. Aegon just needs a little love and support, really.
Yeah.
Joffrey was well beyond that, really, when we first met him in Game of Thrones. So I'm glad that they're not taking that route. But that being said,
Oh yeah.
the interactions that Aegon has in this episode, that's how you build Joffreys, right?
Yes.
That's how you build Joffreys. So maybe that it will eventually go down that path. I don't know, but
Yeah, and we have to remember that, you know, Joffrey spent his whole life under that sort of pressure and poor parenting, whereas like Aegon was just really a kind of a normal kid, more or
yeah,
less in the family. And then, you know, in a matter of weeks here, hey, guess what? You're king now. You were never prepared for this, but you're now king. Yada yada. So he has a lot to unpack there. And
yeah,
that's why he has Jeffrey like tendencies, but like he doesn't really own them because really deep down, yeah, he just wants some affirmation and
yeah,
support,
yep,
which he's not getting because
no,
everyone's too busy for him right now, and he just needs to sit on that throne and be a good boy.
yep.
Um, so yeah, he's going through a lot, but yeah, definitely a great build up, and we have the very experienced dragon rider, seasoned vet, and then we have the young gun here who is in part wasted.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
his
also
dragon.
true. Yep.
So not good. So we have this cool battle. I like the battle. We get a nice dose of just kind of everything. We get like some troop movement thing. We got the people on the castle, like, there's about 1,500 of them. We're kind of screwed. Like,
Yep.
this isn't looking good, but we're gonna give it our best. Um, and you know, we have Cole rallying up the troops. They make some advances. We actually get some fighting, a lot of arrow volleys, and there is a battle happening, which is great. It's a tiny little castle, 1,500 men.
Yep.
Maybe that helped Aegon make the decision, like, frick it, it's just
Yeah, it's
stupid.
just a small
Like, they're
castle.
idiots
Yeah.
anyways for going after this castle. I might as well
Right.
show up and be sweet.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's just cool to see some fighting, man. I thought the battle was really well done. The initial part here. I love the panic when they see the dragon. I thought was hilarious. They're like, "Oh my god!" Which rightfully so. They would freak out if they saw a
Hightower
dragon.
was just like, bro, like, I
Yeah,
told you, dude.
I
Like,
told you, you're an idiot.
what are we doing? What are we doing here? And then
Yep.
Cole's all like, don't worry about it. Sound the,
Yeah. Send
do
the
the
signal.
signal thing.
Yeah.
Um, and we get the little trumpets through the woods where we eventually get to miles away, I would assume, or not pretty far away.
Yeah.
We get Vagar and Aemon just like laying low in the brush.
Hmm.
I don't know if they like army crawled the whole way. Like how did they get there in the first
Yeah.
place?
Yeah. I just love the personality of Vagar. You can tell that he's just like old, worn out, doesn't really even want to be doing this shit. So he like pops his head up when he sees the dragon flying, and he tells him to wait.
Let's
So he
go.
just pops his head back down like an old tired dog, you know.
Yep.
He's like, all right, man, I'm sleeping anyway. So
Yeah, and in this like Melees and Rhaenys already roll up and they're burning some soldiers up. They're all running the other way. Cole's like just staying calm. Now, this is a cool little thing I picked up on. The conquered troops from the castle they conquered, they were out in front getting messed up, and then
Yep.
his kind of royal army, if you will, all the well armored ones, they were all kind of back in the tree line there being calm.
yeah,
So then we get this bit here where Sunfire flies overhead. Aemon's like, dang it, like that's BS. Like that kind of messes things up.
Mhm.
And Sunfire shows up with Aegon, and obviously that distracts Rhaenys, and they engage in battle on the ground. Cole kind of does like your king is with you, yada yada, and kind of like re ups the attack. So great interaction because like we get a lot of perspective of both like the ground and like these very high shots above
Yeah.
even the dragons, but then we also get like the perspective of the dragon rider where they're like looking and they see the other dragon coming. So I
Mhm.
liked the many angles that we got kind of
Yeah.
continuously, whereas like Game of Thrones tended to stick with like the perspective of one thing or the other. Either the dragon was in the background just burning stuff like we saw in Spoils of War.
Yeah.
We kind of just went from Daenerys to like Jamie and his
Yeah.
lackey, who's also awesome, Bronn.
Yeah.
So whereas this, like, I just felt like we had way more fluid and
More
dynamic
going on. Yeah.
shots.
Yeah, for sure. And this really here primarily is what I'm talking about. The cinematography all through this battle scene is so good. I think Vagar's reveal when he comes flying on and they're watching him and just you see his wing in the distance like flapping behind the trees.
Yeah.
That is such a cool freaking shot, dude. And it reminds me of Rogue One, where they're not AT-ATs, they're some other form of that.
Oh, yeah.
The big transport ones coming through the tree line, and you like
Yeah.
hear it first, and then you like see the shadow behind the fog.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. And I was like, oh, it's so cool. And you can see like the fear in the people's eyes that's watching it. And then when he flies over that tree line, dude, massive. That thing's huge, bro. Huge. Its tail
very
is bigger than
lumbery
any.
too.
Very,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the low pan like over the tree line
Oh,
and then finally just like overtakes it and just is just
yeah.
like
So
it's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And and I like the first interaction between Meleys and Sunfire because Aegon kind of calls Dracarys early, kind of like misses his fireball shot.
Yep.
Rhaenys just gets a little singed from it, but enough to um do a maneuver where I believe she went under and came up at him
Yep.
and like just punched like Sunfire up and around and they were entangled. Meleys was like scratching and like opening like the
So,
chest cavity where I think
so
the
I,
fire comes from, all that.
okay, that's what I was curious about because so it gets
Boom.
scratched and then it flies close to the ground and then like blood lands on the soldiers that looks like it's boiling. Like it
I
looks like
believe
it burns them as it flies. So is that
that's
shit
like
like
the
hot?
dragon fire sack, I would
Okay.
say. Like that's where they store all the dragon fire liquid that they then
Okay.
ignite and spew.
Yeah,
So I think
I was
if they had
curious.
like a dud igniter, they would just shoot like that liquid. So I think
Gotcha.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, after like Sunfire got a little messed up and like kind of crashed low, like yeah, was just leaking
Yeah.
fluid, if you will, on the
And it did
field.
look like the soldiers didn't react to just getting covered by blood. It looked like they were
Yeah.
literally boiling, like there's steam
Yeah.
coming off of them. So
Good
I was
observation.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
that
just
definitely was.
a blink and you miss it scene, but I was like, I'm curious about what that's
They didn't
about. Like,
look happy about it, that's for sure.
they
Like,
certainly weren't happy about it. No.
um, so yeah, so the battlefield has a ton of scorch marks. Sunfire's leaking, nearly crashes sort of. And Sunfire and Meleys are able to re-engage because kind of going for a killing blow from someone. Most likely Meleys was looking to, down Sunfire.
Yeah.
Aegon was just trying to like recover his kind of
Yeah.
fumble there. And this is when Vagar comes in. And this is such a really interesting approach that we have here is Aemon just kind of like smirks and he's just like, you know what, we're just gonna go right for it. Dracarys, Vagar, just like burn it.
All of it.
The,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
entangled Meleys and Sunfire. And obviously Sunfire takes a hard hit
Hard.
of it
Yeah.
being noticeably on this side on the Vagar side. So basically, yeah, Sunfire gets burnt bad and like just crashes in the forest beyond.
Yep.
And that little explosion, which is kind of new. Dragons explode when they crash a little bit.
Yep.
So
So
all that built up dragon fire just had to
go somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. I am curious. Do you think that he was trying to kill Aegon there?
I think he wasn't he wasn't mad. He wasn't mad about it. I think he was like, "F it." Like
I think he
I've
saw his chance. Yeah.
yeah, and I think we see a little bit of that play out toward the end too. And um, again, Cole, horrible character, like just the worst.
Yeah.
But he has redeeming qualities as a character when he at least pretends and somehow grieves his situation. Like when it's like when Cole is just an asshole, he's the worst.
Yeah.
But like when you see him stripped of all of his like dignity and like pretendness, like he is in this episode again, it's great to watch because he, I think, did I listen or hear it or someone said it, like he's just a little checker piece and he's trying
Yeah.
to play on the chessboard and he really gets humbled. And when he
I
gets
think it
humbled,
is.
it's
Yeah.
so good. And that's why I love this as the screenshot, because he has some great moments in this final battle.
Yes.
Because he sees Aegon crash. He's like, shit, like
Yeah.
we're the king.
Yeah.
I'm Kingsguard, Lord Commander, hand of the king. Like, that's not good. Bad look on me. So he tries to make off that way. So simultaneously of all that, Vagar and Melees, and I, multiple times here, Rhaenys kind of like could get away.
Yeah.
But she turns back and she's like, I'm gonna fight this dragon.
And she's even thinking about it. You can see it on her face. She's thinking about like, I should probably just go. But
yeah,
something takes over and she's like, you know what? Whatever, man. Like, might
Yeah.
as well let's try one attack, see what happens. It's like when you get to a new room in Dark Souls, and you don't know if
Yeah.
you're high enough level, like just give them one smack. Okay, Bard didn't move at all. I should probably dip out of here. That's what I
Yeah.
think she's thinking. Let's just give it one shot, see where we're at. Unfortunately, pans out poorly, but
and that plays to like her demeanor too after she's been counseling Rhaenyra on, being reserved
yeah,
and all that. So I feel like after being very confident that Rhaenyra has been making the proper choices in terms of vetting what should happen, she's kind of done her part there. And ultimately the equation still came out to be Dragon War.
yeah,
So, and she's like, well, I think I did my best to convince Rhaenyra to do her best. She did her best. We're still at the same 0 outcome. So
right.
if it's war, it's war. So here I am. So, and she should have been queen, could have been queen, wasn't queen, but there's a lot going on there with her character, which is a very good character. But like, I think it's
Right.
very fitting for her where her mind is at right now.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
kind of in a, F it. Like, we've come this far. I guess it's time to go all the way. So she attempts
Yeah.
to attack Vagar, and she actually has a successful run at Vagar, and is actually able to, I believe, get again up and like around under him and get him in a little bit of a tangled dive to where he crashes. Vagar crashes,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
is intense. He has this great Godzilla moment when he gets back
Oh,
up.
so good. That
This
slow
knocks
mo
Cole.
walk, dude.
This knocks
So
Cole
good.
from his horse, and
Yep.
Cole just goes unconscious. So like, there's a lot that happened there. And I think we even
Yeah.
get like a little bit of blackout because we black out with Cole for a moment there,
Right.
and that's when we kind of
Yeah.
wake up to, oh, giant Vagar.
Yeah, so good, dude. That scene, that slow mo scene, again showing how just massive this thing is. Those shots are so cool, dude. I love that. Really, every shot of Vagar in this episode's phenomenal. Even in the
Mhm.
fighting, like it could have been awkward because he is a big, lumbering, awkward dragon, right? But it didn't come across that way, and it looks so good. And that slow mo scene, I don't know, dude. It is very Godzilla. That's a good way to put it. Like that's a Godzilla moment. He's like stepping on people and lumbering across the thing. But yeah, I did like
He's as big as that castle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I did like the multiple like fake out end of the episodes that we got. We got like 3 of them. We get the blackout with Cole, which I didn't really think was going to be, but I was like, it's Game of Thrones, dude. Sometimes they end on random shit.
Oh yeah, good point. I forgot. I got over that
yeah.
quickly when we woke back up to Vhagar Lumber. I'm all right. Let's keep going.
Right. Yeah. Let's keep going.
That
And
would
then
have
it
been a
happened
bad way to
again.
end the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it happened again. I think when Cole's waking up, we get another black screen that I thought was again going to be the end, which I'm glad it's not, because the final couple minutes here are really interesting. A lot to dig into.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. So Vhagar crashes, and we get all that, and so again, Meleys and Rhaenys can fly away, but obviously she's kind of like hunting for where Vhagar went. A cool little interaction even with Meleys, like they even look at each other or something.
Yeah.
And it's all really sad.
Yeah, it is. And I think that they are maybe leaving at that point, because they do turn around and take like one more flight over the battlefield and then over top of the castle and then just keep going. I think they're leaving. I think that's the plan. She's dipping out. She did her, one attack run, didn't hit the health bar too much, knocked him down to the ground, but that's about it.
Right.
I think she is leaving at this point. And yeah, they do share like a moment there where the dragon like looks back at her. The dragon's like missing a horn that I think Vhagar ripped off, and he's kind of banged up already. So I think she makes the decision to dip there. But I do have to go back to when she makes her attack run on Vhagar. She has a seatbelt, bro. Like, that's cool. She straps like a seatbelt on. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I love that. I love the cool dragon things that we didn't get in Game of Thrones. We didn't get saddles in Game of Thrones, right? There's saddles in House of the Dragon. Now we have seatbelts, which seems like a logical thing you would want to have on the dragon you're riding, as something to keep you on there when things are going crazy. So I just had to point that out. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, she hooks the D ring, which funny. There's D rings,
right?
but then she even like tightens the leather strap, like she's strapped in. Like that was cool. And yeah, she takes a good run at it. And like I even thought like she was about to land because they were like injured, and I thought she was about to land in the forest, but it was really just a really low sweep like over everything. Granted, I think Vhagar going down would have been a good time to just like double down and just attack him while he's on the ground. That seems like a better maybe option.
Yeah,
but it's a good point that maybe she was just leaving at that point. She was just like, get me out of here.
I gotta be honest. If I'm on that dragon and I had that interaction with Vhagar, I'm dipping it. I wouldn't even have made the first attack run. I would have dipped right there. Like, there's just
especially
no shot,
when the king went down. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's enough. The king is up in the air. Who knows what happened to him? That's enough. The dragon's messed up. He's probably messed up. Vhagar's going to mess us up. So we should probably just go. And she even says early in the episode, like, Meleys is your biggest dragon, so you have to send me. So that, there's a lot of things she's got to weigh there. Like, it's very risky. It was risky for her to go alone in general, but it's very risky to continue doing this when Vhagar shows up. That's how I take it. I wouldn't have done another attack run. No way.
Yeah. And that's interesting too. Like, why wouldn't, like, I get their reservation for using dragons, but I feel like if you're gonna use dragons and you do have 2+ to use, just like roll in deep, cover your bases just in case you are ambushed by Vhagar.
Yeah. That might be what comes from this, to be honest. That might be what comes from this entire thing, is they're like, all right, no dragonflies alone anymore. Wingman, everyone gets a wingman.
Yeah, if I were I guess I would have went with either Rhaenys plus Rhaenyra or Rhaenys plus Jake.
The son. Yeah.
The son. Because worst case scenario, you roll up to this little fight castle with just like a foot army. There's no other dragons, and you guys just kind of burn them down and just put an end to it. Or there's one dragon and it's 2-on-1. If things get dicey, Rhaenyra splits, Jaehaerys splits, whatever. Like,
yeah.
And
even if there's two, which there was, it's then 2-on-2, not 2-on-1. So that it makes way more sense to have a wingman for the dragons. I think hopefully they see that now after everything unfolding here, and they see what Vhagar's capable of. I mean, he pretty easily essentially takes down 2 dragons in this episode. So
Yeah.
he's the X factor.
Cheap shot though.
Yeah.
Cheap shot.
Cheap
though.
shot. Cheap shot. He definitely does have a signature move. Yeah.
Yeah.
That blind side.
Well, cheap shot on Aegon, but fair move.
Yeah.
The sneak attack.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been 2 dragons, but it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously, yeah, Vhagar swoops up from the cliff side and I like how you could see his head. Then you can see the head over the castle before he snaps. So I did like you see it coming kind of as the watcher.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh god, like it's just so haunting. Like that
it
thing
really is.
coming.
Yeah.
So again, either through the clouds or from behind a castle cliffside, Vhagar just shows up.
Yeah.
Grabs Meleys by the neck, breaks the neck, kind of just strangles.
See,
Meleys to death,
I think,
upward.
I think he strangled the dragon, which I thought was so cool because you can hear him like taking his last breaths before he passes out. And I was like, dude, that is a badass way to take out a dragon, dude. And that shows Vhagar's power. Like he literally just suffocated this dragon with his mouth. So, the only shot that I thought looked a little off here is actually this shot of Rhaenys falling down. I don't know what it was. It was very...
I think any shot fake. At that angle looks weird, even in real life. Yeah. Like anyone with the perspective of the earth but as your background falling, it's going to look... like I think it's just a surreal look. Like it's just bizarre looking.
Yeah. And
but it wasn't as bad as Rhaenyra getting off her dragon on the beach.
No, that wasn't. Yeah, that's the most offensive one so far, for sure. But yeah, man, Rhaenys certainly dead. Yeah, I think without question. I think the dragon landed directly on her the way they were falling. Dragon probably dead, right? Suffocated by Vhagar. That's a big blow.
Meleys is definitely dead. I like how landed on the castle. I was like, ooh, is there a cliff? Like, can she fall into the ocean, please? But no, she kind of takes it like a champ and falls around the castle, breaches the wall, which allows the army to then make it through the wall, which we get when Cole wakes up, because then we get that like dragon crashes, fade to dark.
Right.
Which was great. Then we come up, Cole's waking up, and they're like storming the castle. So like I liked how the battle was still going on. All dragons are dealt
in
with.
The breach. Yeah, and the breach was caused by the falling dragon. That's where they're going. You hear him say, "Go through the breach." So yeah, it was definitely cool. It sucks. I love Rhaenys as a character. I always have since the beginning. So it sucks that she's out so early. Great actress, great story, great chemistry with all the different actors and actresses. Her young Rhaenyra scenes were phenomenal. Great character all around. Big blow to Team Black. Big blow.
Team Black and the show. And this will be interesting for this show as we have massive main character loss over its course. Like, obviously that's nothing new to Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones always had plenty of characters constantly replacing, throughout everything. So this just feels like, I really hope it all continues to hold very strong with even major deaths, because each major death's going to hit a lot harder than Game of Thrones, because they all make up like a 10th of the cast versus like a 20th or 50th. So
that was it was a big shock, dude. I did not expect her. I knew she was in a dire situation as soon as Vhagar showed up. I thought she was making it out, man. And Vhagar with his signature sneak attack rolling through and
I think I had hope up until the point where like on her pass by there was no Vhagar. I'm like, no.
Yeah, trouble. Yeah, where'd he go?
I'm like
that thing can't hide. Yeah.
She's so dead. So it must have just boogied on out and over and around. So yeah, that was not great.
No.
So yeah, we get into like the multiple kind of like we get Cole waking up. The battle's concluding. They're taking the castle. He's still kind of stumbling off. I don't know why he walks right past his horse and just walks through the woods. Like
Yeah, well,
Just too tired.
I would imagine so. I think it takes a decent amount of strength and
A lot of
probably
armor.
coordination to ride a horse. I don't think it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Easier to walk, stumble
it's
around.
easier to walk and stumble. I did love him like going up to the soldier that was kneeling down and like trying to talk to him, and he's just like complete ash underneath all his armor. So that's that's one of those humbling things I think for Cole. I think he's
That's the
seeing that.
screenshot.
Yeah, that he's seeing the devastation that these things do. I think he is humbled in that moment there where he's used to being the guy. He's the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. Everybody bows down to him. They straighten up when he walks through. But then out here, he's not the top of the food chain. I think he realizes now. And it doesn't matter really what side you are in the war. The fire is going to turn you to ash regardless, right? So I think he's well humbled in here. Do I think it's going to change his character? No, because he's a shitbag and he'll find some way out of it. He's going to go back, tell Alicent that he rescued Aegon and bang her probably again. Hopefully not get her pregnant this time. So yeah, you're right. There are good scenes here with Cole. I like all of Cole's scenes here. But I just hate him
that's the thing. Is like I like these scenes. I don't like him. I just like how humbled he is by this whole thing. Like he's just knocked down all the pegs.
Yeah.
He's like in this horrific post-battle scene, and he that dude's just ash. He still needs to go find the king that he's completely sworn to, and in part his plan has probably killed or killed. So he probably doesn't feel too good about that either.
Right.
Which also draws in the question again: is Alicent in on this, or is it just Aemond and Cole? If it's just Aemond and Cole, again, it's going to play out interesting amongst Team Green because how that's going to play out. Because already there's tension between like the secret plans between Cole and Aemond. Obviously, Cole not being at his post when young Jaehaerys dies, so there's a lot of issues there already. So again. Not the larger Team Green making the plans here. Things are going not well when they could be going just fine. Yeah. That was always Otto's point. Like, we can be doing just fine. We have the throne.
Right.
Like that's the big selling point here.
Yeah. There's just a lot. There's always been a lot of infighting on that side. You know what I mean? Everybody's plotting their own angle, their own thing. And we see it kind of fall apart here where everybody really here has their own agenda, right?
Yeah.
Cole had a plan. Cole had a plan that literally would have worked with no casualties to their side besides the soldiers that got messed up.
But they meant to draw out a dragon though.
They did mean to draw out a dragon, but they did not mean to draw out Aegon. Aegon was not supposed to be there. So that was a disaster because nobody talks on that side. If Cole would have said, "Hey dude, we're setting up an ambush. Don't come. Like, we got this. Do not come." Aegon maybe would have listened. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have. He was in dire straits. So
yeah, and it's a lot of like everyone's trying to like prove they're like badass over there too, and it's just like just chill. So and like Alicent, like if she would have known about it, I guess she wouldn't have like. I don't know. Like it's kind of her fault, and she's probably going to feel guilty about it too. Like
100%,
railing into her son that ultimately he gets wasted, gets on his dragon, and then goes and dies or nearly dies. We're unsure because in this next scene, Cole finds Aegon, and I think we even had like another. He stumbles through the woods. I don't think there's another blackout scene here, but
there was three of them, I think.
Yeah, we do appear in the clearing, kind of where Sunfire crashed. And Aegon has his sword drawn. He's approaching Sunfire. Cole yells at him, and he sees his sword, walks a little further, picks up the Valyrian dagger, which at this point exists from the earliest point in Game of Thrones TV history to the very end, when Bran gets it. He picks that up, and he just kind of points where Aegon is lying, kind of encircled by not a dead Sunfire. Sunfire is
breathing,
low on health, with Aegon kind of in a protective little nest, which I like. So Sunfire at least has kind of tried to protect. I would assume it's either a dead Aegon because Sunfire is just attached or is alive and is protecting. So Aemon just kind of leaves. He's like, I got my dagger. I'm gonna go claim the throne, maybe see how
Yeah.
I feel when I get back to King's Landing. Could have killed my brother, but Cole's here. And
So
Cole's just like devastated.
I was curious. It was nice to watch his devastation, by the way, him dropping to his knees. I enjoyed. Finally, something goes wrong for this.
I mean, everything goes wrong. It's just how he feels.
Everything
about
goes.
it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But with Aegon, do you think he was walking up to kill him? Like, why does he have his sword out? Because they're a decent way away from the battle. Like, they're not
Yeah.
on the battlefield.
No.
But
He
when
parked Vhagar, there's no threat to him there's no threat to him.
nothing.
I think he was going to finish off his brother.
I think he was too, but as soon as Cole gets to him, he's seemingly already sheathing his sword. Like he turns around and it looks like he was already in the process of putting it back. So I didn't know if he was rolling up to kill him, or
maybe it was just either he was on his toes to like cover up his intentions because he knew someone might show up, or it was just out for safety reasons. And now that Cole was there, he was like, all right, I'm fine.
yeah.
Just watching his back. So yeah, I could imagine that being either way. It was just out for the sake he was in a sketchy situation on his own. And Cole showed up and he was like, all right, I'm cool now.
Yeah.
Or yeah, he was about to off his brother or what
Yeah.
was left of him.
I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm curious to that because I think without a doubt that he certainly tried to do it earlier in the episode, and then was going down to check to make sure that he was dead. But what do you think? I don't think Aegon's dead here. I think there's no way that's going to happen this early. I could be wrong though. I'm curious to see if he's going to be like in a wheelchair, like.
I mean, he's trashed. Like he fell out of the sky on a dragon. Like
right.
He's messed up. So I don't know if they're gonna do the whole like Joe Biden thing where they're like he can't be king anymore, so we're just gonna pick a new one. or what, or like I guess, Aegon took the dagger. He's very not a fan of his brother right now, and he's in a very strong position. Being able to claim he's killed Rhaenys
right
and Meleys. And technically, according to his side of that plan, everything went just dandy outside of just his brother happened to be in the way. I don't know. He could chalk that up as a win and even make a play for the throne. I don't know if he's going to be that direct or if like anyone would let him. But yeah, it really depends on if Aegon's alive and the state of Aegon. Obviously, that fulfills Alicent's wish for him to do nothing. Well, if he is alive, he is going to be doing a whole lot of nothing other than being just the figurehead king. So she's going to feel horrible about getting her wish granted there.
Yeah.
Hey, just do nothing. Well, guess what, Alicent? You just have a crippled son.
Oh.
Good for you.
Now he's crippled. He's not going to be able to do anything. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I think he's definitely going to have some lasting effects. I don't know what they're going to be. I don't know if he's going to be in a wheelchair, if he's going to be paralyzed, if he's going to be brain dead. I can't imagine, but I have to think that
he's not going to be
permanent
dragon riding unless they brand him to the dragon where he's got like a handicap like harness where he can sit on the dragon without his legs working or something. But like either way, like they're down a dragon rider for some time, if not ever. And I don't know what the dragon recovery process is. If they can get Sunfire back to the dragon pit and then heal Sunfire. I can't imagine Sunfire would have been happy if Aemond killed Aegon. Right, there's that little dynamic there. Like I don't know how dragons react to that kind of situation. Even like later, like remembers, like, oh yeah, you killed my dragon rider.
Yeah,
Rick. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things that can go on there. So either way, they're at least temporarily down a dragon, still up Vhagar. But yeah, lost at least for now a -1-1 for each team on the dragon front.
Yeah. I think even with it, like Aegon is seemingly a pretty inexperienced dragon rider. He can't speak Valyrian. He's not a big blow, I don't think, to the
No.
Greens. Even if he's dead, which I don't think he's dead. Even if he's dead, not the biggest blow. I think the Rhaenys death is a much bigger blow for the black side than Aegon would be if he was dead, which I don't. I think he's probably going to be bedridden, maybe.
Outside of Baelor, isn't that her name? Damon's daughter who chased down Cole in the field.
Yeah.
Outside of her, Rhaenys is the only one that's out there putting in work on the dragon. Like,
right.
She's patrolling the bay. She's patrolling the blockade. She did this. And like Baelor, I think she has a lot of potential. She has a lot of her grandmother, technically, right? That's her grandma, Rhaenys.
Yeah.
So like I think she's definitely a strong candidate. But yeah, Rhaenys is a very devastating blow for Team Black.
Yeah, I think sucks, but yeah, our first big major death of the war, at least. So
second season for sure, yeah.
And dragons dropping left and right. Now we know we're gonna get a lot of dragon deaths because I think this war is really what ended a lot of the dragons. Like a substantial amount of the dragons die during this, maybe all of them. So we know we're gonna get a lot of dragon deaths. And I can't wait to see every one of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I guess I'm interested in knowing if this is when the dragon pit gets destroyed, because that could be a huge blowout for. I don't know if that happens in this or not. I'd rather just save that for a later date. But that's something I'm interested in because, as we noted last season, Dragon Pit does not really exist in King's Landing in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Can't imagine it just fell into disrepair. The place is huge. It definitely got destroyed or knocked down. I forget if they mentioned it got destroyed in Game of Thrones or not.
I seem to remember that they did say that, but I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was during this. I think it is during this.
Yeah, because that's where they met in the last season Game of Thrones. They all met in the Dragon Pit ruins.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. So I think it's definitely, I think it is, I'm pretty positive that it does get destroyed during this war, but I don't know how. And I think they did mention something about that. Maybe a couple times in Game of Thrones, but
yeah. So again, I think we're gonna have another episode of just kind of like the aftermath of this playing out, which is gonna be a big shuffle to the deck. Everyone's strategy plus probably temperaments might be adjusted. I would love to see Cole come back completely humbled and maybe start his recovery arc of being a good person, but I'm not confident in that. But I'd be kind of annoyed if he just shows up again and is like, I saved the king. That went mostly to plan. I don't know. He just sucks. So
he does suck. Yeah, I think the shuffling of the deck is definitely in the cards. I think maybe
Corlys is going to be devastated.
What'd you say?
Corlys.
Corlys is going to be devastated. He's going to be all out war probably from this point forward. War on the mind. Rhaenyra, I'm worried about. I think she's going to be. It sucks because she finally is like, all right, whatever, dude. It's wartime, and this is the first thing that happens, and that's going to dial her back, I would think, for an episode or two where she's maybe like, like that was my first move and I fucked it up. And
I'll be annoyed if like her council just blames her for that. Like they didn't want to do that the whole time. I would fire them all instantly. Like, dude, like y'all suck.
Yeah. So I think that's a problem. I think she's going to be a little bit more reserved maybe with where she's, or maybe think it out a little bit more, because she really does get right back from King's Landing is like, yeah, send a dragon. Like, there's no plan. There's no plan. It's like, yeah, there, send a dragon. Like, she's just.
One interesting thing about the councils, the council that sits with the king in King's Landing versus like whatever the outside council is. So like in both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, the council, the small council at King's Landing has really good council. Right, like a good master of coin, a good maester, a good all of them are good at what they do, right?
Yeah.
And they're all very well reserved with good advice, and they're usually just dealing with like the idiot king currently. A good hand in the outside council. So Rob Stark had his band of bickering lords, and
Yep.
Rhaenyra kind of has the same thing. She has her band of bickering lords, and no one's particularly good at any one thing. They're all just a bunch of lords that kind of have opinions, and that seems to be a theme for the non-throne sitting faction. They don't really have a good council. So I always do enjoy the small council meetings. They have the same formula that works every time. And then there's always the outside against faction to the throne. And they're all just a bunch of bickering idiots. Because Rob dealt with the same thing every day. So did Stannis. He mostly got rid of all of his because
Jon Snow did. Yeah, a lot.
Jon Snow,
yeah.
They all had idiots for like their council.
Yep.
And I just continuously, I'm like, why do I enjoy the small council meetings so much?
They're
because they're all just such great characters that know what they're doing.
Yep.
And I hate the outside council meetings because everyone's just an idiot to whoever's trying to get the throne.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's their biggest. That's the problem too, is like whoever's on the throne doesn't use their council as much as they should. And then whoever's trying to get the throne would love to have that as their council, but they have a bunch of idiot lords.
Idiots. Yep. Every time. History repeats itself.
That's halfway through. We got 4 more episodes. I'm excited. I hope we get some. Only 57 minutes. I need to see a 1 hour and then some teen numbers toward 120 in here.
I agree. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. The battle episodes being shorter.
Yeah.
I'm not cool with the other episodes, especially because we're only getting 8 of them.
Next one needs to be 115, or 115. I'm writing. I'm burning this place down.
I'm with you. Storm Max
Storm. Yeah. So hopefully next episode. Also, Daemon. I need some forward momentum from Daemon next episode. I hope he gets word. I don't know. He's really kind of messed up right now. I'm worried about him. In a perfect world, I would like him to get a raven about Rhaenys dying. He's like, well, that's some BS. I'm about to go mess something up. I'm going to go melt King's Landing. I don't know. I'm going to do something rash. I don't know, but I'm afraid we're not going to get much more rash behavior from Daemon until like the end of the season.
Yeah,
I'm worried he's stuck in this.
I
this
feel like
paradigm
he might be.
Purgatory of Harrenhal.
I think he might be for a good chunk of the season. We'll see. I'm here for it. I just need to see where we're going with it. You know what I mean? I don't know where we're going with it currently. I'm here to watch it for maybe another episode. But if there's not something next episode where we're like, okay, this is where we're heading, I'm going to get a little annoyed because he is one of the best characters and he could be used a little better. But maybe this is a big part of his arc. I don't know. We don't know the book, so this could be a big chunk of his arc. This might be the biggest part of his arc. Who knows?
We shall see. Well, until next week, enjoy the next episode, and then we'll be back to talk about it, recap, break it down, and hopefully like it as much as the rest. I don't see any reason why not. They're doing great for their first prequel of Game of Thrones. So here's the more. Peace out.